All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, hello, 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 hello. How is everyone today? How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing rather well. We're gonna get started here in a few minutes, but shouldn't be too bad. Okay, hopefully everybody's doing good. Uh, yeah, all right. I'll think about that for a second. But it'll get done. It'll get done like everything else. Eventually get done. Got a lot to do today. Well, actually, maybe not a ton to do, but still. Nonetheless, we do have some work to do here today. At least to get another section done and hammered out of the way. So, people will start probably trickling in right about nowish. So, we'll wait a little bit. Hopefully, again, everybody's doing pretty good. All right. There'll be people joining us here today. Ooh. Right there. So wait a few more minutes for people to come on in. How's everybody doing? Cameras around here. Hey, Planet, how are you, my friend? My holidays were really good. I hope your Thanksgiving was really good too. Little tired? Yeah, I'm a little bit tired myself. I can't really lie. But, it's been a strange couple of days, so I suppose it's to be expected. It's gonna take me a couple more days to get back into regular sleeping mode. Just trying to refix my body clock again. That's all. Back to my regular cam here. You can put anything you want, drivers. Just fill in the blank. I don't even know how to use that thing half the time. They're all fake points anyway. Just feel free to fill in the blank if you want to tell me I'm a thing. I won't mind too much. Well, want me to hydrate? Okay, that's fair. Probably do need to. All right. I think a lot of people have enough channel points to last them a lifetime. And basically just put things there so that way maybe you have something to use it for. I guess being a little more interactive can't hurt. Like I said, if you do the one with the fill in the blank, just I know there's no way you could fill in the blank, but you could just put it in another comment or you could put it in the chat there. I don't mind what you put there as long as it's nice and clean. So maybe I'll change that one. I don't know. Let me edit that one. There, I'll put it that way. Tell Professor Chibs something. It makes no sense. We'll just put it there. It makes no sense. All right. I think we're good to hear. I think a few more people. I know 1,000 points. You're like, tell them something. What do you want to tell me, drivers? You guys gotta tell me something. Something. Hi. As yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and give it a go. All right. Time's up. Let's do this. All right. Okay. Let's get started here. Okay, let's get started today. Welcome back. Welcome back to Tuesday. Hopefully everybody had a very wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. All right. So today, let's at least get started here with what I want to discuss here for today. What I want to discuss here, at least to start with for today, is what is on the agenda here upcoming for the remainder of the semester. Now, we have two sections left. We have this section here, section 7.2, which we're getting started with and maybe finishing here today, just depends. And then we also have section 7.3, and those are the last two sections that are up to chapter 7. All right, there will be obviously a test on chapter 7 there, which is already pretty much ready to go. And also a final that'll be pretty much ready to go. And yeah, that'll be it. So um, yeah, we're going to discuss more about those tests there once we finish up with these two sections here, but it shouldn't be overtly too hard. And then you'll have a chance to, kind of get things done and get things squared away and, improve some points and pick up some stuff there. So essentially, if you're missing points there, there will be a way to start making up some points. So that'll be ready to go there. And then if I might be posting something in your emails soon. And as for the last two tests for the Chapter 7 test and for the final exam, we're going to be discussing those next time there, so that way you know the due dates behind those. It's kind of a tight timeline, obviously, with 3 weeks left, technically 2 weeks left actually, 2.5 weeks, something like that, after today. Let me give you a brief rundown though about one thing. So there's a couple things here that needs to be said. So let's go ahead and show that off here. Needs to be shown, actually, I guess I should say. Okay. Okay. All right. Where is that again? I put that there. Just a second there. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna put the test stuff up here for just a moment. Okay. All right. So here again we have our exam here. Our exam here is going to be due on the 3rd. That's in a couple of days. All right, so just remember here, a couple of days, that's when the exam is going to be due. All right, so be sure to go ahead and finish that up by Thursday. All right, so by Thursday here, you should have this done for the test number 4. Again, give the practice a try before you go ahead and do so. All right, now what's upcoming here is that the homework here for Chapter 7 will be open after that, so that'll be on Friday. All right, and that'll be that should probably be changed there. So edit that here real quick. Not have that. It's kind of weird. Oh, anyway, I'll fix that here. Basically, we're gonna have that homework open until the 11th. There, that's when the assignment here is going to be due. All right, so the Unit 7 exam here, just to let you know, will be open on the 4th and it'll be due on the 11th, so the following week. So from this Friday to next Friday there, you'll have a chance to finish up. Even if we don't finish Chapter 7 completely by this week, you'll still have a chance to kind of go through. Again, as you can see here, clearly there are only 8 questions for this particular chapter. Okay, 8. All right, just 8. All right, and then the final exam here, just to let you know, will be during finals week. It'll open up on the 14th, which is that Monday. Or oops, that's the wrong day. Yeah, that'll be Monday to that Friday. All right, is when you'll have to do the final exam. So anywhere in between there. Again, these 29 questions will cover everything up through Chapter 7. I took away 3 questions there that went up to Chapter 8, so because we're not going to cover those since we pretty much ran out of time. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem in all honesty. You get an extra attempt for the final. Let me check for just a second here. It did give you some attempts there, Jamal. Let me, I just need to take a gander here real fast. So I gave you, I gave 4 attempts and 6 hours for each attempt. So 4 attempts and 6 hours for each attempt. So will we get a chance to go back and do old homework? The answer is yes. I will be opening up the homework assignments here. Of course, the only thing that won't be open here are the tests, but I will be opening up old homework assignments. So if like saying, hey, you know what, I want to do better, I'd be like, hey, yeah, I want you to do better too. That'd be pretty great. You can make up some points that way for any old homework assignments that that you haven't done. So I'm going to be doing that here. I just have to make some adjustments here in my on my end. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going down there essentially. This homework editor is kind of stupid, so it's kind of hard to use at times. I'll be honest with you. No problem. Does anybody else have any other questions? I gotta make these adjustments here. Give me a second. Ugh. Let's see, what would that be last day there? Yeah, the 18th. Let's put that, push that to the 18th. I don't care. Let me do it right now. For full disclosure, I'm gonna do it right now. The system is not so great, so I'll be honest with you. Not too happy about the system, but well, let's break the system. That should be easier for me. That way I don't have to care as much. Did I ever tell you I like breaking things? Like systems? Feels great, man. I'm basically readjusting all the homework assignments. Absolute anarchy is correct. All right, there we go. I think that'll take care of most everything. Okay, there. Now all the homework is now all open again. Yeah. No, if I was a dictator, then I wouldn't do nice things. I'd only do nice things for me. But instead, I'll do nice things for you. Okay, so once again, let's recap here. The test. That's pretty good. All right, so let's at least get the skinny here. All right, so the chapter 5 and 6 test. Chapter 5 and 6 test is due on Thursday. Okay. Chapter 7 test. All right, which only has 8 questions here, will be due next Friday. Final exam will be open from the 14th through the 18th. Okay, you'll get 6 hours and 4 attempts per, and there you go. You got it. All homework is now reopened until the 18th. Okay, so you have until the 18th to finish up any of the homework assignments that you've been missing. You guys have that nice and open. There you go. I told you I'd reopen it here for the last few weeks here, so there you go. Here's your opportunity. If you did miss some homework assignments here, now you have your chance to go get it back. If you don't want to take this opportunity and get your points back, well, now you don't have any room to complain. So you could email me, be like, I didn't remember. Like, bruh, you had like 3 weeks to make up anything you missed. I don't know what to tell you. So, uh, that's what we got there just for you guys. All right. Does that make sense for everybody now? I hope that makes, including the current homework, yes. So I'll extend the current homework out. I extended that out to the 18th there. So. Any other questions, anybody? No? Okay. All right. Hopefully, that's a very fair thing. And again, like I said, I like keeping my things as transparent as possible. So now you got to see it in action about how that transparency works. Alrighty. Good beans. Okay, let me log out of this thing. All right. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, the pie completion thing is kind of hard coded into the program. So if they ask you to do some knowledge checks or something like that, then that's kind of part of the thing. So that's something I can't take away, unfortunately. Wouldn't it be the better for the exam to be due on Friday? Because the other exams are due on Fridays. Well, if I did that, it really randomly comes up with questions at different times. You can't really access it. The program just kind of asks you about some knowledge questions. So it's not really accessible. It's just kind of randomly pops up. It's kind of weird like that. I won't lie. I read about it because I was going to try and disable it morning and I was like, oh, how do I disable this? And then it's like, well, it pops up randomly when the system wants it to. I'm like, well, that's dumb. I want it. I don't want it. And they're like, no, it's hard coded. I'm like, yeah, thanks, guys. That kind of sucks. Well, I can't really make it due on a Friday, Planet, and because I've already made the next test number 7, due on a Friday. You have to make it due one day before, and then you have to start it again on like the Friday there. So if you really don't want to do the knowledge check, it'll leave after a few days. Just leave it alone. It's not a problem. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just we kind of have to deal with it. So sorry about that. I'm just letting you know. It's a fair question to ask. It's just unfortunate it's hard coded into the program. So, all right, let's get going here. Let's go ahead and talk about a few things here once again here for today. All right, now all the homework's open. We got the test there. Good to go. All right, let's do it. All right, so the Technology Planet on that, again, this first test is due Thursday, and then the next test will open up on Friday and the next Friday over. So the system is kind of weird like that. You can't start and end on the same, I guess, day, whatever you want to call it there. So, but a Thursday's fair. It's like the end of the class day or whatever. So, alrighty. All right, so let's go ahead and get going here today. We're going to do section 7.2. I totally understand that, though. Totally understand that. I'm just giving you my reasoning. I gave you, like, I don't know, it's like 2 weeks to finish that one, so 1 or 2 weeks. I think I gave you like a 2 weeks, so, or a week and a half or something like that. Whatever. Anyway. All right, so for today, we're going to do section 7.2. Last time we talked about the ellipse, okay, which was like the big oval. We talked about major and minor vertices. We talked about foci. We talked about how to find the standard equation of an ellipse with equations, okay? Now, that last section there that we talked about when it came to ellipses, we're going to talk about the same thing here in a sense, all right, when it comes to this section here, talking about hyperbolas. So let's talk about the standard equation of a hyperbola, and we're going to take a look here on how to go ahead and find all the other necessary things that are also associated with it. Okay, and for this one here, I'm probably, yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to bust that out. So let's do this. Okay, I need to bust out my math type here. There we go. Okay, so just like last time here, when we talked about ellipses here specifically, we had standard equations of ellipses. And once again, we have the standard equations for hyperbolas. Now let's go ahead and put down both of those standard equations of hyperbolas here, and then we'll see exactly what we're working with, what it should look like, and the whole 9 yards. Okay, so let's talk about the first one here. All right. And actually, probably copy paste this. Let's change some things up, of course. Okay, and then we also have a second one here. Go ahead and put down. And it looks fairly similar to the first one here, but let's go ahead and put this down here first. Okay, all right, here we go. Okay, so these both are standard equations for the hyperbola here. Now I'm going to break this down one piece at a time here, because in order for us to understand what the graph of a hyperbola looks like, we're going to need to, of course, acquire some information here, just in case. All right. So let's go ahead and copy this over here. So the first one here looks exactly like this. We have x minus h quantity squared over a squared minus y minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. Okay, now what does this mean here? Well, every hyperbola that we're going to encounter in this particular section is going to have certain certain important points that we're going to want to look at. Okay, let's talk about some of those important points here first and foremost. Okay, oops, 1 and 16. All right. Whoa, not 161, just 1 and 16. All right. First of all, every hyperbola here is going to contain a center. Just like an ellipse, we're going to have a center of this hyperbola. Now, the center of the hyperbola here is located, of course, at a fixed point. That point here is once again h comma k. So the h comma k here that we talked about from before, again, keeping in mind the note here regarding this, remember that h and k are opposite of what is written. Okay, so one of the things, something that we have to be careful about is h and k are opposite of what's written because we have x minus h and y minus k. All right. Now, there are going to be some key differences here in this case as well. Let's talk about the first key difference that you're going to find between ellipses and hyperbolas. The first thing is going to be A and B. Now, what we looked at when we talked about A and B is we said, all right, A is, A has to be bigger than B. That's what we kind of implied when we talked about ellipses. However, in this case, when it comes to hyperbolas, A doesn't matter. A doesn't have to be bigger than B, or B can be bigger than A, or A can be bigger than B. So A and B do not need to be in order. Okay. So again, A doesn't have to be bigger than B, and B doesn't have to be bigger than A. Whatever, they can be whatever they want. I guess I'll put it this way, can be whatever they want. I'll say it that way. So we're going to see some cases where you may see like x minus something squared over 9, and then minus y minus something squared over 16. And that's perfectly fine. Okay. Now, let's talk about this first one here, since this is the first type here. Now, the first thing that we want to talk about here, and probably the most important part when it comes to determining the rest of the graph of this particular hyperbola, or any hyperbola in general, is we want to talk about, like we talked about with ellipses, we talked about the major axis. Okay, now the major axis here is called, in hyperbola's case, the transverse axis. Fancy word for major axis. Okay, so the transverse axis, so that we call it the transverse axis, which is AKA major axis. This is actually going to be the two most important thing. This is going to be the most important thing here because it's going to pretty much guide the rest of the steps in the problem. So I'm not going to really call it the transverse axis, although you can call it that. I'm just going to call it the major axis because everybody kind of remembers that from the ellipses. So it's like, well, yeah, just go ahead and use that here. But the transverse or major axis here in this case is going to be the x-axis. Okay, so if you see an equation that looks like this, the major axis here is going to be the x-axis in this case. Now, the important part here, go ahead and elaborate just a little bit on this. Although I'm just pretty much straight out telling you it's going to be the x-axis. Well, why is that the case here? Let's talk about that here for just a second. The reason why this is x-axis is actually rather simple and rather silly. All right. Whereas before with ellipses, we actually had to determine if A was bigger than B and which letter it was underneath. This time, to determine the major axis, see which letter, X or Y, comes first. That's all you got to do. See which one comes first. If you see X minus H, come first, then it's your major axis is the x-axis. If y comes first, then okay, then y is going to be your major axis. That's it. Notice now the big reason is because instead of having a plus in the middle, it has a minus in the middle. So because of the minus here, things don't get as complicated with minus because things have to go in a certain place. So that's why I want to add that note there. So that way it doesn't get confusing. Which one is this? Is this, and that? Like, nah, you know what? Screw all that noise. Okay, we got, here you go. Here's your major axis. Donezo. All right, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right. Next, of course, we have our minor axis here. Our minor axis here. And we'll talk about what minor axis actually plays into this particular role here because it has a slightly different role than it did from before. Okay, so the role from before is a little different, but again, of course, if the major axis is the x-axis, then of course the y-axis has to be your minor axis here. Okay. All right. Are there any questions so far about that? A lot of this, once again, here is going to be an information dump, but I want to go through this information a little bit slowly and kind of parallel what we talked about here with ellipses. So, pretty simple. Okay. All right, good. Now, yes, that's correct. So all that ellipse stuff that we talked about here, there are some definite parallels. Not everything is going to transfer over, though. We will see the major differences here between a hyperbola and ellipse. Okay, so there are some significant differences. So you'll see why in once we put the graph together. So yeah, that's fine. Once we look at these examples here and you go back and take a look at the ellipse stuff once again, you'll see where the parallels are. But there are certain there are parallels, but there's also stuff that's of course a little bit more brand new about how we approach this information. Okay, let's take a good look here first. Now, the book doesn't do a very good job of this, but I want to be clear about this, okay? So that way it makes it this problem becomes significantly easier if the book actually included like key pieces of information. Because it's like it just kind of tells you, oh, it's just kind of there. And then you're like, what? It's kind of there. What does that mean? All right. So um I want to go over this next part here, which is going to be probably one of the critical keys here. Now, so one of the things that was important, of course, in order for us to, I know, one of the things that was important for us to put together the shape of the ellipse was major and minor vertices. Now this is going to play a role in a slightly different way, but let's talk about major vertices here with this first way of doing things, okay? So what are the major vertices here in this case? Now the major vertices here are going to be dependent on A and B here respectively. Since our major axis is the x-axis here in this particular instance, again, you start from the center and you work your way up. So what we're going to have here are major vertices. In this case, we're going to have two major vertices. We're going to have h plus, I don't want that underlined. That looks rather awkward. So I'm going to have h plus a, comma k, and h minus a, comma k. Okay, so this is our major vertices here. Okay, we have these two guys right here. There you go, no problem. So that's because, again, A here, you notice for either of these cases is underneath our major axis. So fairly convenient, fairly nice. Let's talk about our minor vertices here. I'm actually going to move this here. All right. let's talk about minor vertices. Now, minor vertices work slightly a bit different as well, but not significantly different, trust me. Again, we're now going to use B here, as you see here on the screen. We're now going to use this B here because that's underneath the Y. So we're going to move, again, on our minor axis. That's why we just stayed our minor axis here, just to keep ourselves organized. So we're going to have H, comma, K plus B. And H, comma, K minus B. Okay. All right. So those are our minor vertices right there. All right. Okay, good. All right. Now, what we're going to do next here is we're going to talk about the shape here. Now, the shape here is going to be very important. All right. Because again, just like we had for ellipses, we want an expectation for our final answer here once we graph the whole thing and put it together. And it should be in the correct direction. So, you know, like, is it a egg on its side or is an egg right side up? You know, something like that. So the thing is, that's what we want to look at here for the shape. So let's look at the shape here that we expect for this first type. All right. And so the shape here that is expected here, let me go ahead and put the paint tool down for this one. So the shape that we expect for this one here should look like this. Okay. That was terrible. Let's try that again. Go. So this is the shape that we expect here for this graph. It should look like this. Okay. That's the generic shape of the graph. We're going to see how we can actually achieve that, but again, that's what it should look like. Okay. So of course, very crude drawing naturally, but the one thing that is important here regarding this is that that's my expectation of what it should look like approximately at the end of the day. All right, fine. Okay, now let's look at the other type. Okay, so there are two types here. Before I move on here, are there any questions about our vertices and shape and all that stuff? Any questions at all before we move on? I guess you guys are still writing it down. So if you guys are still writing it down, I can wait. I can wait a minute or so. No. I'll wait a minute. I'll let you guys write that down if you need to. So that's only fair. Just let me know when you're done. It's all good. Done? Okay. Yeah, I figured there was just some writing there, so. Okay. Anybody else working on it? And I'll move forward once No? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move forward then. Just a little bit more information to dump down here. And we're going to go ahead and look at this together here. So the other type that you see here is also on screen. Again, we get y minus k quantity squared over h squared minus x minus h quantity squared over b squared. Okay, so let's look at that type as well. Again, two types, just like there was for the ellipse. So it shouldn't come as a shocker that we're going to have two types here for hyperbola. Okay, now let's take a look here at this first one. Now, the first one here, I had to explain kind of a lot of the information, the basis, the background, so I don't really have to do that here too much. Again, let's go over the basics here first and foremost. The center here is, once again, h comma k. Okay. Just again, be very careful about this. It doesn't, again, take a look. All right. I want to stress this actually. Remember, h is over here with the x, and k is over here with the y. All right. So, people sometimes get confused because they want to read it in exact order from left to right, but that's not necessarily true here. Okay, next let's go over each one here. The next one is the transverse or major axis. I'm just going to call it major axis because forget it. Okay, so what's the major axis here? Once again, the major axis here is that, again, the first letter you see is x, is h always with x and k always? Yes, that is correct, Gerda. Let's go ahead and put that as a note. I think that's fair. I like that. I think that's a very good note. I like that a lot, actually. That makes things a lot easier. Thank you, Gerda. All right. All right. That is correct. The major axis is the y-axis. Okay? That definitely is true. So the major axis is the y-axis since y is the first letter you see. All right, great. The minor axis, of course, just by default has to be, of course, the x-axis. Ay, ay, ay. All right, so the major axis and the minor axis there. Major axis, the y-axis, minor axis, the x-axis. All right, seems rather fair. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, let's talk about, more importantly, the major and minor vertices. All right, so that's going to be, of course, the most important part here once we establish that. This would be one of those times where it's actually easier to have a whiteboard. I would write this down pretty fast. All right, so our minor vertices here, again, notice A is underneath Y this time. So we have, again, H comma K plus A and H comma K minus A. Okay. We also have minor vertices as well. So in this case here, the B is underneath the X in this instance. So we're going to have H plus B comma K and H minus B comma K. Okay, so this is going to be our minor vertices, or major and minor vertices. Now, what it looks like so far is that it doesn't look any different than what we did with ellipses, but, well, devil's going to be in the details, but we need to actually get this information in first. Okay, so the shape here. Let's talk about the shape. All right. The shape here is going to be like this. That's a terrible shape, and I'm probably should regret my choices. All right. So here's the shape here in general. It should look something like this. There we go. All right. So that's what the shape should look like here. Again, don't expect the best drawing for me, as everybody knows by now. But again, this is the general shape of the graph. Again, a little noticeably different than the first one. Again, now it's just, again, instead of to the sides over here, it's now up and down like this. So, all right. But everything I draw. So says the horse. Oh my gosh. I'll never let that down, I'm sure. You guys will never let me down. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So that's how we can get the information here for the second time. Oh my gosh. All right. Now, let's talk about the next question as well, because we're going to talk about that. Sis is skinny. Sis is. Wait, what? I'm so confused. What? What does that mean, Planet? I'm I wish I was skinny. I I'm really confused. Gen Z humor. Hey, don't forget who you're talking to. Okay, I'm Generation X. Okay, I'm a little bit behind here. I'm actually in between like Generation X and Millennial. Yeah, I don't really care though. Wait, yours like legit Gen Z and doesn't understand the joke either. I'm so confused. I'm actually shaking. All right. Anyway, all right. Let me get to the point at hand here. Oh, okay. All right. All right. I got you. I got you. If that's a TikTok meme, then that's the problem right there. I don't even use TikTok. I think TikTok's boring, but yeah, that's just me. You got to read it for the voice for it to be funny. Fair enough. All right. I got so lost there for a second. I'm like, the heck is that? Like, what has happened here? What happened here? What happened here? Oh my gosh. All right. Let's talk about the foci. It's ironic we talk about the focus of all things right now. All right. You gonna this that's what I got to do. All right, that's what I got to do. All right. How do we find the foci for a hyperbola? Okay. Let's discuss how we can find the foci for the hyperbola here, as there will be two of them here in this case. All right. Now, it's going to be, of course, dependent on our major axis. Okay, so let's say our major axis here is the x-axis. Okay. You have no social life, all you know are memes. Hmm. You have no social life, but all you know are memes. Now you gotta get out there and talk to people. You know, I know that, of course, during this time it ain't the safest thing to do, but you gotta get out there and, be a little more social. Talk to people. Don't feel too awkward. Sometimes you gotta step out of your comfort zone. Uh, yeah, you're doing a good job. I mean, look, look. I understand that to you, Planet, you may be still anonymous behind the keyboard here, but don't forget this is still a class nonetheless. Okay, and if we were in a classroom setting, as opposed to being on Twitch or again on Zoom or something like that, well then, in a sense, you know, you'd still be doing something social. Again, you know what I like about Twitch, though, amongst anything else, is that the thing that I like about Twitch compared to Zoom is that, again, without the use of the camera here, you can have a chance to be more social and not have to feel worried. Again, this is as you've noticed here throughout the course of the semester, I'm not a person to judge you. Okay, so you know, there's no judging going on here. I can guarantee that. So trust me, I wasn't the best social butterfly myself. So, but slowly but surely, I understood that I just had to kind of step out and do things that are rather uncomfortable. So, and trust me on this, I've done a lot of things that are some people would find pretty uncomfortable if you were in that kind of social situation. But I'm glad that I did it. So, yeah. That's why I don't like Zoom. Zoom is again like a corporate cringeworthy. Well, I told Anna actually earlier, but if this is not so much cringe as it would be kind of like a life altering sort of social situation. And I don't mean for the people I was talking to, it was more for myself. I'll freely admit that. And it wasn't the easiest thing to bring up either, but I had to do it. So, so what I did was is that pretty much when I left for Japan there, the year probably close to right after I left for Japan, I made a decision for myself. My decision for myself was to I left my religion altogether. Now, if there's something to be said here, is that I made that decision for myself. I have my reasons for doing so. And that was not an easy decision to make because I've been raised well, I was pretty much raised as a Muslim from day one. My all my family are Muslim, okay? So again, they follow Islam and all that stuff. But for me, I decided to go a different route, okay? So I didn't say anything for like 5 years. So finally, I felt comfortable enough to have that conversation. And it was not an easy conversation. And yeah, it was very, very uncomfortable, to say the least. But I will tell you this. Did I feel a lot more confident after that conversation? Yes. Did I feel like the weight was off my shoulders? Absolutely 100%. You know, I stated my reasons for doing so. Yeah, that's a very rough conversation. In fact, I got a really rough backlash on that, to be perfectly honest with you. And I mean very rough. My sister didn't talk to me for 6 months. My mom didn't talk to me for like 3 or 4 months, which I was pretty disappointed about. But you know what? I understood. I just kind of let things lie for a while. And you know what? If they took them time to process it, and I was willing to respect that space. But I was still going to do me at the end of the day. It doesn't mean that I'm act like a jerk around them either, though. It's like, okay, I'm not Muslim anymore, so I'm going to do this and that in front of you. Like, nah. I still respect what they do and what they like. It's just that I went in a different direction than they did, or that they raised me on. Mind you, I went to mosques and all that stuff, and then the prayers when I was a kid and all that junk. But the thing is, that was something that you know that was something that wasn't kind of my deal. I have a different outlook on how I look at things. But to say for a fact that everybody's got a different kind of spirituality, and if you say, hey, I follow this, and I like Jesus Christ, or I like I follow the Torah, whatever religion that you decide to adopt, that's your own spirituality there, and I completely respect it. So whatever I tell you about what I believe in is basically my own opinion, but it shouldn't be imposed upon you. And that's a very strict rule I have for myself. One of my one of my things that's one of my parts of my moral compass is to never impose my ideology upon you. You know, you have to find who you are by doing things their way at times. Um, yeah, my mom pushes me to go and reconvert again, but I'm like, nah. I'm curious, Anna. What do you mean by that? By doing things their way. If you're talking about just saying what's the, if I'm understanding, if that's just kind of like saying what's good or bad, like, hey, I don't like this, but I like this sort of thing. You know, if uh, if I'm understanding that comment correctly. Yeah, you know what? Social pressure from the church. Yeah, fortunately in my community, at least for my Muslim community, we weren't. I wasn't really socially pressured by the mosque too much. I mean, yeah, there's a community there, but I often distance myself from the community in general. Still have a lot of friends within the community, so that know, basically, I pretty much outright said, hey, I'm not Muslim no more. Okay, fine. I'm like, okay, you kind of have to roll with it, and it is what it is. So, but yeah, you know what? Some people just need to take a step away and just find out who they are on their own. And that's morning. That would be a big shame. That would be a very big shame. I'm not going to get into the politics of religion and stuff, but to me, I'm like, if you have a partner, if we're talking same-sex stuff or anything like that, I, I don't care. Love is love. You do what you want. You know, I don't see that I have a right to impose anything upon you in what you like, in who you love. It makes no sense. It makes no sense for me to actually tell you what you should and shouldn't do. You make the decisions for yourself at the end of the day. And if it comes to love, I'm going to respect any decision that you make. Trust me on that. You got an Trust me when I say this. You got one supporter here for sure. So, hmm, that's an interesting observation, Anna. Now you know who you are in the religious aspect, and that's good. But you want to see how people think of you, who you are in general. Outside of church, I want people to see me for who I am as a human. I agree with that. I will say though, there's one drawback to that. And I will say this, and this is something that I've learned over time, is that you're basically, in order to promote your own self-confidence, is based on the judgments and opinions of others. And the confidence that you should be getting should be just coming from within. Because I go with it this way. Not everybody is going to agree with my opinion, much as the same way as if I'm teaching this class, not everybody is going to pass this class. That's just a fact. I wish everybody could pass this class with an A and A plus. Okay, I wish it would happen, but you know what? That's unrealistic to think. All right. The thing is that the actions that I take as an individual, the what you wrote there, um, if people see that I've earned the respect that I got, then that's fine. But not everybody's going to respect me, even if I take those same actions, because it could be interpreted completely differently from one person to another. So that's why I don't let like all the opinions necessarily um, shape me for who I am. I have to take a little bit from them, and I got to take some from me, and then some from the experience, and then kind of mold them together. But that's the way I see things. And like I said, I'm not expecting anybody to agree with me. I don't think that's right. I think everybody should be able to come up with their own opinions, and then like I said, I hate telling people what to do. So it's one of those weird things, I guess, about me is like, all right, you don't want to say, oh, that person. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Anna. There's going to be people who are going to say that regardless of what you do. And that's not trying to be negative. That's just, you just kind of have to shut those people out, and just say, look, there's going to be people that are going to be like that. Okay. I've encountered some of them. It's like, look, I just for the reason of walking into a room and the fact that I exist without saying a thing, it's like, oh, yeah, you're there. It's like, okay, you know, it's just like that. Some people are just going to judge you just based on how you look, how you dress, how you do this and that and the other thing. And I would say at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's based on your actions, and what you do. Yeah, you don't need to adjust yourself necessarily for them. The only thing that you have to necessarily adjust for, in my opinion, is if you feel like there's a consistent problem that you have. So if there's a consistent problem that you have, like a flaw that happens to be consistent, and you want to work on that, you want to work on that. I don't say you have to work on that, but you want to work on that. Then that is something that you can undertake. If it is a consistency, if it just happens once and then you're like, oh, okay, it was, just an accident or something like that, then that's just part of being a human being. So, that's going to happen. Major or minor mistakes, it's going to happen because we're all human and that's just a natural part of the process. All right, so here we got c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Sorry, I got to do this. Apologies. Um, so what is the focus here? So the focus here is, again, if your major axis is the x-axis, it's going to be, starting from the center here, h plus c comma k, and h minus c comma k. See, that's what I like about this forum here on Twitch, is that it's a nice open forum. People can express their opinions, and they can say what they would like to say. And I respect any and all opinions here. Ironically enough, now I didn't tell you this part, Anna, or I didn't tell anybody this part, is that where I got this idea from, of all things. Now this was kind of in Japan. This was in Japan here. and I got a knock on the door when I in the apartment the company apartment I was in, and so I was like, oh, who is it? Just I can't really speak Japanese, so if there was somebody at the door, I was like, oh, I guess I'll answer it. Maybe it's something important. Open the door, and the guy I see in front of me, he's like, what he's got in his hand? Of all the things he's got in his hand, he's got a Watchtower magazine in his hand. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, wow, it's a Jehovah's Witness. It's amazing. I'm like, I'm on the ninth floor of this place, okay? I'm on the ninth floor of an apartment building. And I'm like, well, there we go. And I'm like, and yeah, him and I actually got to talking. Um, and basically, I asked him, like, you know what, hey, um, why'd you join the Jehovah's Witnesses? It's like, it's a fair question. Like, hey, why did you join? And he said to me, he's like, the reason why I joined is because, my wife, she died of cancer. And I'm like, oh man, that's terrible. And he was, literally shaking and crying a bit as we was, kind of talking about it. And he felt that, you know, um, that Jehovah's Witnesses gave him a little bit more structure and stability, in his life. And it was right then and there, at just talking to him and just having a nice friendly conversation, is right then and there that basically all those ideas that I had from before, I just felt like everything that I've been doing was like a sense of entitlement or more righteous. And I realized that, what, regardless of what anybody thinks of Jehovah's Witness or whatever, it doesn't matter. That's what gave him stability and strength after a very, nasty tragedy. And I'm like, who am I to say otherwise? Who am I to tell you that that's wrong? Like, no, it was right for him, and I'm glad that he found that source of stability for in his life, and he found like a good, he found something positive in his life, and it's something like that that I found very, very eye opening for me. It's just as something simple as that. Religion strength is often in the community, yeah, or it could be in the community, or it could be again within the within the texts, or again beliefs or whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can find that strength. He found that particular community in Japan was like, this is a small city in Japan, by the way. Small, relatively small, by the way. I'm just going to point that out. Small in Japan is a little different than regular small, but in any case, I digress. um but yeah, it's just like yeah, he was able to find his place. He's able to find his stability for his life, and I'm like, well, I ain't gonna complain. That's his right, and I'll be more than happy to support that. And I've lived through that, ever since that encounter. And I realized my actions in the past were a little bit more, uh, you know, a little bit more righteous acting. I'm like, you know what? I gotta drop this, and I gotta be like, it was like a light bulb just went off, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it makes sense now. So I'm like, I used to be like that before, where I'm not imposing, but I used to be a little bit overbearing when I was still in the religion. And I was like, I realized, man, I don't have to be that way. I can still respect everybody else's opinions and their sense of belonging in community. That's great. And I should be really happy about that. And I am. So, all right. Well, we got to move from religious talk here, and we got to graph some hyperbolas, folks. And we're going to have this in two halves because obviously we've been talking for a little bit, but I don't think that should be a problem. In any case, let's take a good look here on how to graph hyperbolas. All right. All right. So let's start off with something nice and easy. Uh, we'll work our way up from there. Okay, so there's going to be various steps here, but I'm going to write out an example here first and foremost. And then we'll put it on the paint tool here. Let me write this one down here. Okay, here we are. Okay, so here we have x plus 4 quantity squared over 9 minus y plus 3 quantity squared over 16 is equal to 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this problem out here. So we're going to go over the steps here in order to graph this particular hyperbola. So let's see exactly how we do that. So I'm going to write the steps here, of course, just as usual. And then we'll do the steps out here on the paint tool that we got here. Okay. All right. Move that over here. There we are. Perfect. Okay. Now, let's talk about step one. Step one here is something that we did talk about here before in previous examples. So step one here basically is going to be essentially, don't forget, put it just if necessary. This is not for every case, like this case here. If necessary, put the equation in standard form. Okay. I.e., do completing the square. Do completing the square twice, which once again we're going to do here, or divide by the right-hand side. Okay, so there's several ways for us to go ahead and put it into standard form here. You could, etc. There's lots of different ways you can actually approach this. It depends what it's written. But all right. So that's step one here. Now, step one effectively is done here for this particular problem because as you can see here, this is already in standard form right from the get-go. So we don't have to do anything special here. This is all we want. We want it to look just like this. Okay. So let's move on to step two then. Step two. Step two, find the center. Find the center here of h comma k. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that next. So notice that the steps here are not too different than what we talked about for ellipses. So what's the center here in this case? Can anybody tell me what's the center for this hyperbola? Anybody tell me what the center for this hyperbola will be? Well, I need some coordinates here. I'm gonna need some coordinates, so let's go back here. What would it be here? 4 comma 3? -4 comma -3. That is correct. So you fell for my trap card. All right? Yep, you fell for the trap card, okay? You did pot of greed, okay? It allows me to draw 2 cards from my deck, i.e. 2 wrong answers from my deck. All right. So, yeah, you don't want to do that. It's there you go. Now, so -4 comma -3. Remember that the center here is opposite that of what is written. So here we have -4, and here we have -3. Okay, remember they're opposite. So +4 plus 3, let's do what's opposite here. Okay, so that's fine. All right, next, let's talk about the next step here. All right. So the first few steps here aren't going to be any different than what we've done before, but again, identify the major and minor axes. All right. And then step 4, we're going to find the major and minor vertices. Okay. So step 3, step 4 are going to be pretty much one and the same that we did for ellipses here. All right. So step 3, let's talk about the major axis. What's the major axis here in this case? Anybody tell me here, what's the major axis here in this case? X, okay? Notice that X comes first, right? So if X comes first, then that's perfectly fine. There we go. All right, and of course, minor axis here has to be by default the y-axis. All right, so that's perfectly fine there. We're good to go there. All right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, next, let's take a good look here at our major and minor vertices. Okay, so what are our major vertices here? Well, first and foremost here, we need to find out what A and B are. So can anybody tell me what is A and what is B? According to the equation here, what's going to be A and what's going to be B? So let me go back here to this. So A is 9 and B is 16. Be a little careful about that. Remember, it's A squared. So try one more time with that. It's not just the number straight up here. Remember, it's something squared is equal to 9, and something squared is equal to 16. So what would A and B be there in that case? What squared is equal to 9? I believe this isn't too hard. I hope not. All right, very good. A is going to equal, actually, let me undo that. That's pretty bad. So remember, this is going to be 3 squared, and this here will be 4 squared. So that means A here is equal to 3, and B here is equal to 4. This is a very important step here. Okay, so you need to identify A and B here appropriately. That goes along with the standard equation here. Remember, it's A squared and B squared, not just A and B. Is it always going to be positive? Yes. A and B is always positive. That's true. Yeah, so you're not going to get a case where you're going to get like -3. That makes no sense. Always going to be positive. You can take it to the bank. for every single problem, regardless. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our major axis here. So I'm going to put this back on the other side here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our major axis, which is the x-axis. So we're going to take our major vertices here is going to be, let me put it in a different color here. We're going to get -4 plus 3, comma, -3. And we're also going to have -4 minus 3, comma, -3. All right. We'll also have our minor vertices here. We'll figure out what this is in just a second. But again, our minor vertices are going to run off of B here. So we're going to have -4, comma, -3. Since B is here is equal to 4, so -3 plus 4. And then here we have, again, -4, comma, -3 minus 4. So let's go ahead and figure out what each of these are here. All right, really quick. So -4 plus 3 is, that's going to be -1. We have -1, comma, -3. We have -4 minus 3, that's -7, comma, -3. Here are minor vertices here. Again, we have -4 and -3 plus 4, so -4, comma, 1. And then this other one here, which is going to be -4, comma, -7. Okay, so those are the 4 points here for our major and minor vertices, okay? All right, any questions about those major and minor vertices? Okay. All right. So let's talk about the next step here. Okay. So we now have these 4 points here. The question is, what are we going to do with them? Now, we're not making an ellipse here, so they're not doing connect the dots here necessarily in terms of putting it as a nice big oval. Unfortunately, that is not happening here in this case. So what do we do here in this case as our next step? Well, let's talk about that here. What I'm going to say next here is, hey, Fuse, how are you doing, my dude? So let's talk about the next step here, which is going to be the crucial step, and the one step here that is the biggest difference between an ellipse and a hyperbola here. Okay, so step 5. I'm doing very good, my friend, doing very good. So step 5 here basically is going to be this. All right, we want to plot each of the major and minor vertices on a graph and connect them into an imaginary box. All right. After that, proceed to put imaginary lines through each of the diagonals that go through the center. Yeah. All right. All right. So this is going to be the big key difference here. Now, you're probably saying, whoa, 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 time out. Holy crap, words. All right, fair. Fair to say, absolutely 100% fair to say. All right, lots of words, lots of things, lots of ickety-dickety boo. All right, so what do we want to do here? What we want to do here specifically is we want to go ahead and let's plot out each of the 4 points that we see written on here. So that's we're going to put it on a graph here. Just take it one at a time here for this particular step, and you'll see exactly how this works. It looks tough, but in reality, it's actually not as bad as it may seem. But I'm going to go ahead and make a graph. Let's start off with that. Simple enough. So let me plot my points here first. So I'm going to have -1, comma, -3. So 1, 2, 3. You know what? For this after that part, I'll put that as the next step. You know what? I might have an important note for that, but that'll be the next step here. Let's keep that separate. All right. Let's put that separate because I think I'll have something important to say about that. So, all right. In any case, -1, comma, -3 is right here. Okay. -7, comma, -3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. We're going to plot this like so. -4, comma, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, comma, 1. Okay. And then -4, comma, 7. So, -7, sorry. So -4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Right here. All right, so we plotted each one of those points. Now you could also put in the center here. So that's -4, comma, -3. So plot the center here. So the center here should be -4, comma, -3. So it'll be right here. Okay, so I'll just mark that in black. All right, in any case, let's talk about what's going to happen next. Now, as it says here, it says plot each of the major and minor vertices. Now we've done that perfect. We're going to connect them into an imaginary box. All right. Now, what is this imaginary box going to look like here? Well, notice how it looks like. It kind of looks like that ellipse, but I want a box shape instead. So I'm going to connect it just like so, and I'm going to let me put it in a different color here so it makes it a little bit more clear. I'll put it in orange. So I'm going to just put it here. I'm just going to go up here with this imaginary box and then cut on a perfect 90-degree angle going through that point. And I'll come down, boop, 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 boop. Come across, boop, 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 and then come back up again. All right, so you see here in orange, this is the imaginary box that I'm talking about here that I would like you to have, okay? This is what it should look like, just like so. So that is, in effect, what I have here for step 5. Before we move to step 6 here, are there any questions about what I just did here? Any questions at all? Maybe you guys are copying that down still, so I'll wait. All right. Okay, so I want to take a good look here at this part. Okay, now let's look at step 6. Proceed to put imaginary lines through each of the diagonals that go through the center. What exactly does that mean here? Okay, and I'm going to add a note to this step 6 here for sure. But I'll put this, again, I'll put it in orange here. I'm going to go from diagonal to diagonal. So from one diagonal, and I'm going to go down to the opposite diagonal that goes through the center. So from here, I'm just going to go like this. Maybe I will put it in a different color, actually, to showcase that. I'll put it here in green. So basically, I'll have a line that kind of goes like this, and I'll have a line that kind of goes like this. I know that's pretty awkward, but again, work with me here. As you know, my works of art are amazing. All right, so there are my two diagonal lines, imaginary lines here, that I'm putting through each of the diagonals here. That goes through the center. All right. Now, the note that I do want to put here is that the lines that you find, the lines that you graph in step 6, or I say the imaginary lines in step 6, are the asymptotes or the hyperbola. Remember that asymptotes here, again, we've talked about it earlier in this semester here. Again, asymptotes are imaginary lines that the graph will get closer and closer to, but not quite touch. Okay? And we're going to be doing a little bit more with the asymptotes and the foci here momentarily. But at least let's start putting other things here together. Okay, now let's go to the last step here. Okay, actually, we'll go to the last couple of steps here. Step 7. All right, there's a few steps to this here, but I'm breaking it down one at a time because there's not a lot of moving parts to the problem like this. But again, there's just kind of like a lot of little bits of information that you got to find in and along the way. So, and it tends to be a little annoying. All right. Draw the graph with the major vertices being the vertexes of each parabola. Remember the general shape that we want it to be in. Okay. I want to focus on this here for just a second. Okay. The major vertices here are the most important thing that we need to find because both of those points here, okay, are going to be our vertexes of the parabolas that we're going to draw. That's why I had a say in here in this particular case, why I want to take a look at the shape here of the graph. The shape here of the graph should be predictable. It should look like this, right? Because x comes first. So it should look like what you see here on the screen. All right, and I want to be sure 100% that it's going to look exactly like that. Well, another way to check that here is here in step 7, we're going to use the major vertices here. So -1, -3, and -7, -3. Those are going to be our vertexes of both of those parabolas there respectively. And so let's go ahead and fill in the blanks here. So I'm just going to make a darker dot here. And how does the parabola go? Well, if you know that these green lines here are going to be your asymptotes here, again, it's going to get closer and closer to, but not quite touch. So this is your vertex. You kind of spread out from there. Kind of goes toward the asymptote. So this is kind of a very wide parabola, but that's fine. This is again based on the expectation that we have here. It should look just like this. Okay, and so this is, in a sense, this is going to be our hyperbola here for this problem. Finally, there is one more step here. I am going to point this out here. Step 8, find the foci and plot the points. Okay, that's all you got to do for that last step there. Find the foci and plot the points. We're going to do that here in just a second. But before I do, are there any questions about that? Any questions about what step 7, step 6, step 7 is going to look like there? No? Okay. Well, let's take a good look here at finding the foci here at the very least. So we've done step 6 steps. We just need to do step 8. Okay. So let's bring this up here full screen. Okay, so step 8 here. So we did step 5. Uh, step 6. Step 7. Now let's move on to step number 8 here. Let's do the foci here. Now the foci here, just as a friendly reminder, was c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Again, we're just going to add these two things together here. So a here was 3, and then b was 4. So 3 squared plus 4 squared. So in this case here, c squared is equal to 9 plus 16, which is equal to 25. Let me just take the square root of both sides. So c here will equal to 5. Okay, again, we have to rely on our major axis here, which is our x-axis. And we're just going to add and subtract here from the center, okay, along the x-axis. So our foci here specifically, in this case, is going to be, let's see, where's our center? There it is. Minus 4 plus 5, comma minus 3. And minus 4 minus 5, comma minus 3. Okay. All right. So here we're going to get 1 comma minus 3. That'll be our first focus. Second focus here will be negative 9 comma minus 3. So we can plot these 2 points here. Put that in purple. So we'll have 1 comma minus 3. So 1 comma minus 3 is right here. And then we have negative 9 comma minus 3. I believe this was 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that was 7. We'll extend that out just a bit more. So here's our focus right here for the other one. So we got we have foci here, 2 foci for these problems. Again, that's where we can go ahead and plot those. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Any questions about the hyperbola here in general? We have talked about that here a little bit. Now we do have one more thing that we need to acknowledge here, by the way. So let's acknowledge that right here for this particular part. We found pretty much everything associated with this particular equation for a hyperbola. But one of the things that we talked about here in the middle of this process is we have two asymptotes here, the ones that are labeled here in green that you see here on the screen. Now, one thing that we have to acknowledge is that we can also find the equations of the asymptotes here that you see on the screen. Okay. Now, we're not going to do this, by trial and error. Instead, we're going to use a couple of shortcuts here in order for us to actually met this out. All right. So we're going to follow a couple of rules here. So let's do it. And I need to make the adjustment there, right? Okay. Need to make that adjustment. So that's what I put down this last question for. How do we find the equations of the asymptotes of hyperbolas? Now we're going to have two different cases going on here. Okay. So let's talk about both cases here. We'll talk about where the major axis is going to be. And again, we're going to just look and see what happens in both cases. So first, let's talk about the major axis. Let's say the major axis is the x-axis. So how do we find the two asymptotes here? Now, one of the things that we talked about way back when is we talked about using the point slope formula. And this is one of those things that, yeah, the point slope formula actually is going to play a role in this as well. So I need to bring this up here. So the way this works is that we're going to use the center along with, we're going to establish a slope here. Now, notice here, let's go back to our example here. Notice we have two asymptotes, okay? So we have one going up and coming from the left going up to the right, and one coming from the left going down to the right. Essentially, both of these lines are essentially opposites of each other, all right? I.e., they'll have, again, they'll have opposite slopes. They'll have negative slopes. Negative and positive slopes, I guess, is the best way to put it. In any case, let's go ahead and put down the first one here. So here, the first one, we have y minus k equals, where is it here? I'm going to consolidate this just a bit. Okay, so this is the first one here, all right? If the major axis is the x-axis, this is the formula that we're going to need to follow. Again, you will get two unique, let me put that as a note here for this. Note. You will get two unique asymptotes, two unique equations. All right, so you will not get the same answer twice, okay? You'll get two unique equations here for both asymptotes. That's entirely plausible. Okay, so you'll just have to do it. And the reason is because you have plus or minus b over a, okay? So you have to separate that into two equations, okay? And let's go with the other major axis here. Let's say the major axis is the y-axis. All right, what's the difference here? Well, there's actually only one key difference in all honesty, and that is actually what the slope is. It's instead of b over a, it's actually a over b. And everything else stays the same. So you have to solve for y here in both of these cases. So let me go ahead and state that here. All right, there we go. So let's go ahead and take a look here. And let's see for our example here how we can go ahead and figure out what the equations of the asymptotes here are for this problem. Again, all you need here in this case is, let's go ahead and section a little bit off here. So I'm going to zoom out here for a second. I'll make a little bit more room. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. So what we have here is, let's write down our information here once again, or actually let's highlight the information here specifically. We have our center here, our h comma k. So again, if you need to label your h and k here appropriately, you can label your h here, which is -4, and your k here, which is -3. Okay, so we have h and k here. So I'll just write it down once again. -4 comma -3. And we have a here is 3 and b is 4. And now we're just going to start filling in the blanks here and seeing what we're going to get. Okay, so let's start off with this. We're going to, again, our major axis is the x-axis. So we're going to have y minus k. So y minus k, so y minus -3. Okay, remember this is h and k. Y minus -3 equals, and I'm going to do this as two separate equations here. So I'm going to do first positive b over a. So we have 4/3 times x minus -4. We'll also do the other one here as well. So go ahead and write that a little bit below. We get y minus -3 equals negative b over a. So this time it's the negative case. X minus -4. Okay. And now with this, we want to go ahead and find out what we get here once we solve for y in both of these particular cases. Okay. So let's see what happens. All right. So let's clean stuff up here for just a second. So here we get, I'm going to put that as a different color here. We're going to get y plus 3 equals 4/3 times x plus 4. This is just cleaning it up a little. Right. What we get here next is we get y plus 3. We're going to distribute the 4/3 here to both terms. So we get 4/3 x plus 16 over 3. Then we'll go ahead and subtract 3 on both sides. We get y here is equal to 4/3 x. And here we get 16 minus 9, which is 7. So we're going to get 4/3 x plus 7 over 3 will be our first asymptote. Now let's do the same thing here for the other one. So here we get y plus 3 is equal to -4/3 x plus 4. Again, let's go ahead and distribute the -4/3 this time. So we get y plus 3 here is equal to -4/3 x minus 16 over 3. Here we're going to subtract 3 on both sides here. So if we do that here specifically, y is equal to -4/3 x. Again, we get -16 minus 9, so that's actually -25 over 3. And so these are the equations of our two asymptotes for our particular example that we have here. Okay, and that's our final answer. Got all the information that we can get from this particular hyperbola. All right. Does anybody have any questions about our asymptotes there? I wanted to showcase this off here because what we're going to do for next time here is, of course, look at different equations here and see if we can replicate this process a little bit. We'll also do examples that are fairly similar to the ones we did for ellipses, like converting from one equation into the standard equation, standard form. Um, so that's something that we're going to definitely be looking at there. But does anybody have any questions that they may have? No? Any questions? Any questions at all about today's first half of today's section? We'll do some more examples here for next time. So, no? Anybody need to see a particular part of the notes again? I want to be sure that if you're copying this down, make sure you got the correct information down. All right. Okay, so if there are no more questions here, which is fine. All right, so I'm going to end off here for today. I want to thank everybody very much for coming out here to the stream once again. You guys make the streams fun and exciting. I love you guys, all of you. All right. Uh, you guys, all right. You guys have yourself a very, very wonderful night. All right. Again, all the homework, again, just as a friendly reminder here, all the homework is now open. Okay, so if there's any old homework you want to go ahead and start catching up on, now's a good time to start. Again, the homework here will be open until the 18th. However, do check the due dates for the test here. Again, the next test, Chapter 5 and 6 test here, is due in 2 days on Thursday. So be sure to finish that before ahead of time. Then right after that, on Friday, you'll have a chance to go ahead and start on the last test there for Chapter 7. So, yes. Okay. All right. Great job today. Thank you, Morning. You have yourself a good night as well. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out to the stream once again. All right, everyone. We will see you in a couple of days. All right. Take care of yourselves and have a great one.